Welcome back to Things Reasons, the independent podcast for Australian IT leaders who want to hear what's not being said on stage. This is the conversation after the meeting where people drop the script and say what they actually think. We talk about the drivers shaping Australian IT, tech shifts, talent gaps, budget pressure, vendor plays, and leadership calls, the reasons behind them. And with me, as always, is my co-host, Naran McClung.
Happy to be here.
Naran, what have you been up to this week?
Look, what have I been up to? I have been spending so much time with Microsoft people, to be honest with you, over the last week. Obviously, they went through a restructure. They've launched their financial year. There are people in new roles for reasons, I'm sure. But I've been meeting with so many of them. They will always advocate that they're partner first. So far this financial year, incredibly so. I would say probably 4 or 5 meetings a day, introductions. So yeah, doing that and lots of cycling obviously as well. That's how I get my lustrous glow, Jono. Okay, that's where it comes from.
It's important.
It is important.
Yeah.
Right, but do you know what's more important? We have a wonderful guest here. I'm going to introduce this gentleman. Now, I've known him for some time. His name is Simon Reiter. He's the CTO for CareSuper. He's a wonderful chap. He's an experienced technology leader. He's got deep experience in financial services and superannuation. And at CareSuper, he's responsible for steering technology strategy, data, digital transformation in a sector that's not just about dollars and cents. It's about delivering long-term value to members. Simon, welcome to Things Reasons.
Thanks, Aaron. Nice to be here.
Excellent. Right. So,
Let's get into it.
let's get into it.
All right. Simon, we heard a rumour that you've just attended Adapt CIO Edge. I think it might have even been yesterday. I'd love for you to talk us through it. What stood out to you? Anything that surprised you? Where was the focus? Was it a valuable event? Always curious about these things, you know. Lots of them go on in the industry. Love to get your perspective on the day.
Thank you. Look, you're right. Your rumours were true. I was at Adapt yesterday. So great conference. To be honest, I get conference invitations in my mailbox probably at least once a week from someone, somewhere.
A lot of it.
And I can't go to all of those because it's not a good use of my time. So I am quite selective which ones I actually go to. So this is the one of the few I actually go to. It's a free event for me to attend, which is great. And generally it's around a lot of my peers. And it's not just the same sector. It's across lots of other sectors. So the great thing they do at the start of each of the sessions is to sort of give you a bit of a view around who's attending the actual conference.
You use the word free there, Simon. All right. Now, when we use products that are free, we are the product. So talk us through that.
That is true. I am the product in that one. So by attending, what you do is you meet with a bunch of vendors really as part of the attendance. And they sort of talk to you about what they're actually offering in the market, which is also interesting, to be honest, because, I don't know everything. My wife tells me that all the time. So it is true. So sometimes meeting with the vendors, you sometimes get some good insights around, I didn't know that was a thing that was going on. And generally, sometimes hearing where vendors are investing is a good lead indicator to, well, I may actually start thinking about that.
Yep.
Maybe I shouldn't. So it's just one of those things that's a good insight.
Yes.
But at the start of the conference, the great thing they do is they have a couple of slides where they really show some industry stats. How much money is being spent on IT, how big the IT teams are roughly across, what size organizations are there, which industries they work in. And so then, and the other bit of what's the top 3 priorities? And they compare that to last year's conference. And you kind of see how it shifts. So this year, the top 3, you can probably guess number 1.
Well, come on.
Well, okay. If I'm going to guess, it's either going to be AI or cyber.
Yep, AI. So again,
AI this year.
Yes, this year. Last year it was cyber.
Right.
This year it was AI. And then the second one was around enterprise data. So focus on that again. Not surprising because in my view, data and AI are kind of peas in the pod.
They are.
Work together, and then the third was cyber. So
yeah, there you go. That's Naran and I have been sort of commenting on these trends in the last series of the podcast, and obviously keen attendees of the Adapt conference.
Shout out to Adapt. We love Adapt.
Yeah, good on you, Matt Boone.
That's
if you're
right.
listening, I think he does listen to the podcast. Actually, great team, and sometimes we are surprised, sometimes we're not. That's why it's a
Yeah.
But we seem to be oscillating in the industry. You know, these two segments are jockeying for position: AI, cyber, enterprise data. No surprise, and I think they're all starting to merge as well because you need to do AI safely. So interesting to get your views on that. What did you learn?
So interesting enough, the other thing that was quite interesting is, we had a roundtable and also some stats at the start which confirmed the same thing. Only 2% of organisations have actually put in a AI capability beyond the proof of concept.
Yes.
So I'm not too surprised to see that. I think you both probably would be too surprised. There's lots of talk about AI, lots of proof of concepts, but taking it from an idea or a little proof of concept that doesn't actually connect to anything, and you actually put it into production with your production systems, your guardrails, your data, your security is a lot more complex. And then training your workforce on that and then your customers. So,
well, let's reflect on that, right? So amazing stat. And by now I actually would have expected that percentage to be higher. Yeah. It's not surprising, but the expectation, at least in market, would have us believe it should be higher. And if we think about OpenAI, they've now got their channel and direct consultancy play. I'm wondering whether the builders of these LLMs have figured out that actually it's not enough just to have good tech. Businesses need a bit of help to turn this stuff on, right? Yeah.
I always think it's interesting of what's the problem AI is actually trying to solve. So it's great you got AI, it's great technology. Yep. I use it all the time for all sorts of things, right? So, but if it's not clear what the problem is you're trying to solve, you know, I think back, if everyone's old, you know, we're all probably old enough here to know back when the App Store came out. Everyone was adamant they all need a mobile app.
Yes,
and what's the mobile app for? I don't care. I just want a mobile app.
Right?
If
you don't have an app, you're not in market.
It's the same thing. I don't care what we need. We just need AI, right? And there's no real thinking around, well, what's that actually trying to solve? Well, who's actually going to use it? What's the problem actually I'm trying to fix? And then you roll out an AI platform to your staff or to your customers, and then no one uses it.
Yes.
And you go, oh, AI failed. It's like, well, not really. What actually failed was that fact like every program you do and every change program in human history, you need to run a really strong change management journey and have a very, very clear, we're going to solve this problem with this tool. You know, very similar to, I guess, you go back to, I always use the Henry Ford analogy, right? That when you invented the car, if I asked people what they wanted, they would say, I would need a faster horse. Yeah. So you go back again and go, well, if I ask people what they actually want, we come back and go, I just want to fix this process or I want to automate that. And you go, that's where you start with the AI and look at how you can actually use it to fix that problem.
That's right. And look, we've had a conversation of this in our first episode. We talk about just the changing role of the big IT service provider, market sentiment for any organisation that has thousands and thousands of staff, perhaps that just aren't necessary. And I think there's certainly an expectation that tech can help with that. I know as well, being an MSP ourselves at Macquarie, we're about wanting to scale properly with tech as opposed to people, right? We don't want to scale with people because we need to be more predictable. We want programmatic methods, and we have embraced both machine learning and agentic AI in our own business, and I can definitely see that continuing. There's no staff reductions, though, in our business. Our people are just doing more high value tasks, and so I think we'll see more of that. For us, the use cases are obvious. Anything that is just too labour intensive, right? Find a process that's labour intensive, and can the tech help with either augmentation or peering is what we're supposed to believe is where we're at now. If we believe Satya Nadella says, it's all about peering relationships with technology.
Yeah, I think that's right. I'm also surprised at that 2% number. It sounds low.
Yeah.
I wonder if that's 2% are reporting that they've implemented a successful project, but there's a much larger percentage running experiments.
I think there is. At the roundtable that followed that day at lunch, which had about 25 CIOs and CTOs and heads of there across Australia, there was lots of talk. A lot of people were asking how I govern this, how do I secure this, how I measure value, and essentially how we actually gain the change, the people journey. Right? That was the common themes from the lunch. Not a lot of conversations around which LLM are you using, what tech have you embedded it with. It's all these other traditional, and these are all traditional change problems we've had for years, or any big technology change.
Yes.
It's just that this is now AI. The challenge is, at home, I can use ChatGPT on my phone, and the way it goes straight away, and it does a great job. And also, you can go to the workforce and go, well, I can't do the same thing.
Yeah, that's right.
Why doesn't it work just as well? And there's a whole bunch of complexities around why. But to your average staff member who's working with you or your customer out there, they just want it to work just like ChatGPT, right? So
that's right. I think consumer technology's always been a little bit ahead in terms of setting expectations for end users. And then when they come into the workplace, they go, well, that thing that I do outside of work, why can't I have it here? And there's always that tension between business and the IT department and the end user. And we saw that really, I'd say, proliferate, especially with the work from home shift through the pandemic, and consumer technology starting to really drive the way that people work like we've never seen before. And I think that's right. AI's heading in the same direction.
Wonder how many shadow IT Gen AI projects are kicking off all over the place, right? With business units just taking the bull by the horns and going, you know what, we're just going to do this our own way.
Yeah, I feel like a CTOs and CIOs just doing that. How do you stay on top of that?
It's a challenge, right? It's around how you you want to be innovative. The challenge of the any CIO role is you want to be innovative and showing progress. But at the same time, you have to look at compliance, regulation, security, and safety, because that's what the board asks you to do.
Sure, if we have to.
If we have to. Nobody wants to be the
glass half empty kind of guy.
You don't want to be the guy that says no all the time, right? You don't want to be that guy.
No,
Which leads us nicely to question 2. So, Simon, I guess the obvious one is really, where do you see the super industry going in the next 5 years, and what is the role in technology that's shaping that?
Yeah, that's a good question. So look, superannuation, for those who most people who are probably listening would be familiar with what superannuation is by now. It's been around from
something we have to have.
The Paul Keating government brought it in, if everyone remembers that. And back then it was a very small mandatory contribution from your salary, about 3%. Now it's up to 12. It's about $4.1 trillion now under management of funds across Australia. So that's a fair bit of coin sitting there that people like myself have the privilege of managing for the members who trust us to manage it for them. And CareSuper itself has about 60 billion of that. We look after about 600,000 Australians of their superannuation retirement. But where it's really going as an industry itself is a couple of things. One is really going to be around market consolidation as it grows larger.
Right.
It's one of those things. There's a lot of super funds that are really specific to industries, and as they grow larger, and we just start to get more of a commercialised market, because of just the amount of money we've got to invest, and the way the global markets will work, and to get the best returns for those members of those super funds, you really have to look at how you can invest that across the broad spectrum of different, most of the airports in Australia are owned by superannuation funds. Most of the ports in Australia are owned by superannuation funds. It's not just shares and gold and bonds that you might think traditional investments would be. Lots of infrastructure projects actually owned. Big renewable energy projects are funded by superannuation funds. There's a whole bunch of property developments inside. There's one in Sydney not that far away where they're doing a build-to-rent program to building properties close to where a lot of their members actually work as well, so supporting that. So there's lots of actual investment that happens locally and internationally as well. So, but to get the best return for your members, it basically means you have to have enough money there to support the members who want to retire, to give them the cash when they retire and get to that age, to spend it and enjoy their retirement. That's why we exist ultimately, is to support the members to get to a good retirement. But at the same time, have enough that you can go off and invest in those types of projects, which might have 10, 20-year returns to come back and give you that really strong return. So really, that's where that consolidation driver comes through. To look at getting the more money you can pull into one central spot to drive further investments.
Yep.
What that really means from the technology point of view is how we actually start to centralise and uplift our platforms to really support those members without having to hire more people. So similar to your comment before, Naran, you can't just keep hiring people to grow. It's not a good use of expenditure to keep growing, because ultimately at the end of the day, a lot of our superannuation funds are profit to member, which means we need to minimise our costs to serve those members. That means about minimising our fees. So to do that, we look at, how can we streamline with technology?
Yes.
How can we digitise? How can we make things more straight through processing? How can we automate? How can we do things around, for example, helping you at those moments that matter? So just a couple of moments that matter in your life. When you first get into the workforce, understand what is super and how does this actually help me? No one really teaches that in school. So so you can have that kind of journey. Then you go through the journey. When you're midlife, you start thinking, you hit your 40s probably, you start thinking, well, I'm going to retire soonish. So start thinking about what I'm going to start doing for that. Then you get to retirement stage and go, okay, well, how do I actually do retirement? What does this even mean? How does Centrelink get involved? What's this pension thing? How do I apply for that? Like all these different questions, and really, you've never done that before, right? So
no.
that's why we should be there to help those people
through
those moments. So it's all about my view, it's all about digitization, streamlining.
Lots of change.
Lots of change.
Yeah.
It's an industry that you would think, sound on the surface, you think superannuation, retirement, not much happening there, but there's quite a lot happening across the industry.
Yeah, I mean, look, nothing fuels technology change like acquisition, right? And all that goes along with that, managing identity and consolidating services and all that stuff. So yeah.
In my career in super, I've done five M&As in the time I've been in superannuation, which is about 6 years. So
there's a lot of consolidation in that space, right?
Yeah, a lot of consolidation. So there's lots of, and it's all driven by ultimately providing the best value back to the members to serve them, right? So which is basically optimizing your costs and find the best way to invest the funding.
Yeah, it's a really interesting space. It's not something I think a lot of people dig into the back end of how it works and how these funds deliver value back to members, because it's, to your point, something that you don't really start to consider until later in life. It's more just, I've got this money going somewhere that I can't really touch. And for business owners, it's actually quite a large chunk of your payroll as well. In terms of technology decisions and your role helping to manage a superannuation fund, what is the criteria that you look for when you're greenlighting a project or building a business case to link that business case back to member value? Like, is there like a checklist? How do you position these projects, and how do you think about member value in that context?
There's two. I'll give you two answers. So there's the Simon view, and which I sort of follow as a CTO and leader, and there's the actual what we do as a fund as per a regulation, right? So there's a thing they call the members' best financial interest check or test. So essentially, what you do, any procurement decision through that process, it runs through this members' best financial interest framework. And essentially, we have to then measure the return of that investment, of what it is. And go, well, is that in the best members' financial interest? Is that going to help them with retirement? What's the ROI on that? Does it really stack up? So it's a really good commercial check around, okay, if I'm going to spend $1,000, that has an ROI of 10 years, probably not really worth doing it, right? So you might look at things and go, okay, well, what can we do separately to make that ROI better? So good checkpoint. They get signed off for all material purchases across the superannuation funds, and that's a regulation we get by our regulator APRA. So it's across all superannuation funds. Now, the flip side is also, so obviously I follow that because that's what we have to do, and it's a good practice to follow anyway. I think
makes sense.
Strong check. As a technology leader, though, there's a couple other things you kind of check before you're making these procurement decisions around partners. Because I think the word partners overused a bit in the vendor customer scape, because we all have vendors. And we all have interaction with our customers, right? I think at the end of the day, I don't look at Coles as a partner or Woolworths as a partner. To me, that's a vendor-customer relationship. I go in there, I get my groceries, I get out.
Yep.
That's kind of it. There's no partnership there.
Yep.
And
you may pay for those groceries. Who knows?
Depends how good the AI is working on at the till.
Very well. Yeah.
So so that's one of those things where it's kind of, that's the journey.
Of course.
But other things you go, actually, no, I actually want that partner. I need a strategic partner to help me get to a certain end goal. So you might go, look, this is key to our business, or it's a material play. And when I look at the strategy of what we want to achieve, I go, I want that vendor / partner's probably a better insertion there, right? To help me get to that point. So going back to that, Coles Woolworths analogy, it's kind of like, hey, instead of me just getting my groceries, yes, you'll help me do that, but then you're going to have a chef come around to my house, they're going to help me figure out my menu for the week and then help me cook it.
That's right.
And do all the prep work, and then great, that's delivered a whole bunch more value back to my family.
There's problem solving that needs to happen, right? And it needs to be a back and forth, and you're looking for input just as much as you're looking for outcomes.
That's it.
100%.
So that's what I kind of look for from that partnership view. And that's not really, you get the member's best financial interest check, that's fine, that's the commercial lens. But you might have two vendors who are exactly the same in their ROI and the cost. And you go, okay, from that check, they're exactly the same. But one's come along with a really great strategic alignment going, we're going to partner with you and this is how we're going to do it. And the one's come along going, well, here's our price, but it's really cheap. And you go, okay, well, which one would you kind of pick between those two? So it's almost, again, if one of the grocery chains said to you, well, I'll just give you groceries to you, and the other one said, I'll come around and cook it for you. But it's the same cost. Which one you got to pick?
It also depends on what you need.
That's it. That's
Depends
exactly
on
right.
if you're a good cook or not,
Well,
right?
I'm a terrible cook. So in that case, I'll go for the one that actually cooks it.
And tell me, just as an extension to this, I'm curious about how investment decisions get made in that context around cybersecurity. So you're obviously regulated by APRA, and there's things you have to do, and then there's a linking it back to member value view as well, right? So obviously the super industries, that's quite topical with some cyber attacks in other funds, and I think that's got everybody thinking about, not just from a banking perspective, is my money safe, but is my retirement fund safe? Are you looking at that through a compliance lens or a strategic lens that would potentially help you attract more members or bring member value, or is it both?
It's a good, interesting question. I think the first bit I go back to, that industry superannuation industry event that the media jumped on and called it a cyber attack. If you really break that down, which is, I think it's good to break this down a bit, is it was really a fraud event, actually, if you go back into it, because no actual systems were actually breached.
Right.
What it was is they basically went through the dark web, and they scraped a bunch of usernames and passwords from previous breaches, and then use those to log onto portals and transfer some money out. Right?
Got it.
And that's where members might have been using the same username and password for some other thing that got breached, and so there's a best practice user behavior type exploit.
That's it. So it's a couple of things you go, well, yes, you should have MFA out logging and those types of practices, and yes, CareSuper's had that for a very long time in place. Sure. But again, I don't see security to me is not one of those things where it's a competitive advantage. It's just what we should do to be good corporate citizens or a good trusted partner to our members, right? So it's just, there's an expectation that if you're going to trust us with your retirement money, we're going to secure it for you. Yeah. So it's not one of those things where, in my view, security is something you do, and we should be aiming for the best security we can justify putting in. Yeah. Because obviously it's a risk-based conversation. I mean, the best security in the world would be I just turn all the computers off. Yeah. And unplug them. Right. And get a guy with a gun on top and go, that's it. Come and get your data, right? But no one can use it.
The Tesla robot that stands in front of your house holding the gun, protecting your family. Yeah, 100%.
It's interesting you say that. So it's a cost and risk-based balancing act. Yep. But I think also compliance gives the industry good guidelines. So APRA with CPS 230 or even the government with Essential 8 and just basic things like maturity level 2 mandating MFA are all helpful things.
They are. I mean, APRA has a couple, CPS 234, which is their information security guidelines. If anyone wants to go and look at that, it's on APRA's website. CPS 230, which came in from 1st of July. That's all about third-party and vendor risk. We also have, I said ASC Essential 8, and we also have a lot of super funds use NIST as an industry framework as well to sort of...
That's starting to really come to the fore, I think, as well.
Yeah, I mean, the good thing about NIST is that it's the complete life cycle of cybersecurity. So it goes from the whole what you're doing to plan it, to recover it, to monitor it, to respond to incidents, which is good. Yep. And it's a really easy conversation to have with your board and fellow execs because you can talk about what's on NIST maturity score. It was really hard to go, well, great, we spent X amount on security. Has that made us any better or not? And you go, well, unless you're using a framework like that, you go, I think so. Yeah. So it's good to say, yes, we actually did. We had an independent audit come through. Our NIST score has gone from 3 to 3.4, or whatever it is. Making up examples. They're not CareSuper's numbers, but sure. Whatever the examples might be. But at least you have a number you can link it back to, and you can actually show when you break it down then inside each of the different controls within NIST where your gaps might be, which makes it mean that it's a much more meaningful conversation then, and it's in language that even non-technical people can understand.
It puts some structure to it, doesn't it?
Yeah,
certainly.
Yeah, it does.
Well, look, I mean, there's plenty to be mindful of there, right? In which I'm going to change gears here. This is sort of some more personal stuff, if I may. Now, I'll be vulnerable myself here. Right? These jobs can be stressful, right, that we have. Now, clearly today, recording a podcast, there's nothing stressful about it at all. But the other job, the 9-to-5 job can be. I remember back in the day, I went on a management course when I was working out of the ACT, and unbeknownst to me, there was a whole segment on meditation. And this gentleman got up, he's about 65, I think, at the time. His name was Walter Bellin, and he looked 35, straight-backed, full of energy, etc. Where's this guy get all his energy from? He led us through a meditation class. And I was skeptical at the time. He said, just trust me on this. You're a bunch of young people that think you know everything. Just bear with me here. I'm going to guide you through this process. And I tell you what, it was like taking, I imagine, speculatively, like taking a drug, right? And at the other end of it, I was refreshed. It's like I'd had REM sleep, and it reduced stress and anxiety marketfold. And I've taken that through for the rest of my life ever since, some 20 odd years ago. Where am I going with that? Clearly the job can be stressful. Things can wake you up at 2 a.m. How do you manage it? What do you do?
Good.
Do you have any
question.
stress?
Oh, yes, plenty of stress. Okay. So, it's one of those things, I think working in technology and, any technology job, especially when you're looking after a large superannuation fund, that, you got to think you're 24 hours away from a major crisis, right? It could be right now, could be tomorrow, it could be, you don't know when that phone's going to ring, and that's going to be all, your complete week changes.
Well, your phone's off right now. It could be happening right now.
Could be. But you know what? That's okay. But it's one of those things you sort of work through. So how do I manage that? At the end of the day, I kind of, a long time ago, one of my mentors really introduced this concept of energy. Spin off what you said. So, there's certain things give you energy. Sleep's obvious, but that's a physical energy, and then you got emotional energy as well. And your body throughout the day and throughout the week, through different stress situations, you use bits of both, right? Use your physical energy and use your stress energy. So, but the trick is how you keep your buckets full. And between those two, and there's different things I do. Look, I find certain things help my stress energy, and that's around exercising. I find if I don't go to the gym and exercise, that's a good release of my stress energy.
Oh yes.
I also find playing my guitar also a good stress relief for my energy, because you just have to focus on what I'm doing with the music instead. And being in a very technical analytical job, having the chance to go more with my creative side is actually a really nice refreshment. I'm using parts of my brain I wouldn't normally use.
If I had known this, we'd have asked you to bring the guitar on the pod. I don't think that would have been a problem at all.
Next time.
Next time. And then the other thing I like doing as well is sort of the breathing throughout the day. The small things I do. So there's certain breathing techniques that I've sort of learned over the years, where you sort of can take some deep, because your brain runs off of very heavily on oxygen, right? So, and a lot of us breathe wrong. So until you actually do this, you actually speak to someone about it, you don't realise that we actually all breathe wrong by default, and that when you actually start to refocus how you should be breathing, taking those deep breaths in, you actually increase your oxygen right up to 80-90% of your blood, which is where you want to try to be. And the more you do that, your brain works faster. And that's the technique I use a lot of times. Going to stressful meetings, going to to board presentations, going to difficult conversations. I often find that if you sort of brace yourself beforehand and take a few breaths and do those deep breathing techniques, you actually find you're a lot more calm in the conversation. And then afterwards, the same thing. So it's there's just different techniques throughout the day. I also find going for a walk is also helpful. Getting some vitamin D. I also try, especially in summer, try to get outside pretty early after waking up. Because it's one of those things that your body feels so much better if you get some sun in the first hour in the morning versus just. And that's why winter we all feel a bit depressed, right?
Oh, listen, I couldn't agree more. I mean, I go out early. I mean, we've had torrential rain here in Sydney. I think Melbourne's had anything like it, but we've had it here. We've just come through that now. And just the difference in starting your day, the sun's coming up, you're out on the bike, you have a coffee with your mates, and then you get on with it and go to work. Man, I feel better for that. Yeah. Right?
So 100%.
100% better.
It took me years to figure that out. And then you look back now to some things that I was stressed and struggling with when I was going up the ranks and I was more junior at the time. If I knew that back then, I could deal with that so much better, those situations. But
well, we talked about that, the advice we would give our younger selves, right? As we sit here as aged.
Are we those guys now?
Aged.
We're those guys now. Yeah. I think the encouraging thing about that is just being self-aware and acknowledging that managing stress is a thing.
100%.
We're allowed to talk about our feelings, Jono.
We're allowed to talk about it.
We are.
For years, that just blast through. Pressure's just part of the job, part of being a high-performing person, and you probably accidentally have other outlets. Some people are lucky to be still playing sport into their 30s and 40s and all the rest, and that sort of accidentally happens. But being deliberate about managing stress is really, really important.
Agreed. All right. Well, look, Simon, so we have our famous quickfire 3 questions. Yep. I'm going to ask you. In fact, we'll do it back and forth. I'll do the first one, Jono. You can do the next one.
Yeah, all right.
All right?
Let's do it.
Good.
Okay, here we go. Simon, so what is the one piece of advice that you would give your past self before taking on a major tech initiative or challenge?
For me, it's all about the people. So going back in hindsight when I was younger, it was all about, we'll just get the tech out, not understanding why people want to use it. It's obvious you should just use that, right? It's going to make your life better. But now I'm got some more grey hair. You kind of realize that, hang on, people aren't always open to change. That's not everyone's personality. Some people are just comfortable with what they're using. Some people are just scared. So I think, taking it back to the people and going, well, what am I actually trying to solve? How's this going to help you? I think that's the advice I'll give to anyone or my previous self, really.
I love a people-focused answer there as well. With all the tech that we're embracing, human beings are still important, apparently, Jono.
Yeah, people are naturally resistant to change, and I think technology is there to help, and you need to be able to stay focused on why you're implementing certain technology in a business or in any setting, really, and it's really just to help people do things better. Yeah. Great answer. Okay, here's one. Give us something controversial. Come on. What's something you used to believe in tech leadership that you no longer do?
That's a good one. See, I think if I think about this objectively, I actually think that technology itself, really, that the technology itself was the answer to everything, right? When I was more of a younger nerd, I used to think, going well, that was what we just put the systems in, we buy buy more tech. And
Problem solved,
right? We just throw tech at it, that will fix everything, right? You used to tinker with coding and electrical soldering and wiring and robotic, all this kind of stuff back in the day when computers weren't as easy to use as they are now, and technology didn't really exist. But you look at that, go, that's not really the right approach anymore. I don't think people don't want to go into that angle. I don't think that's really the way to solve problems anymore either. I know it's a people thing again, right? But it goes back to the process and people. And I think, think about it, I think it's just a evolution of how humans are. It was protected us for thousands of years through our evolution, is that we are resistant to change because that's what keeps you alive when dinosaurs are chasing you, right? So not being curious about going into there or inventing, you can't just be safe for what you know, and that's what protects us and keeps us alive. If I go back to, at the end of the day, I think I was probably a bit naive around how I was probably more aggressive how I threw some of those projects back in the day.
Yeah, so you got a more pragmatic approach now to approaching technology change, more of a people-first approach.
I probably didn't really think about the people really well, being honest. Back when I was younger, I was kind of like, we'll just do the technology and we'll just go, people can suck it up, like that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And lots of things failed, right? So lots of mistakes were made. Some of those I realised at the time. Some of those I didn't realise looking back in hindsight, going, gee, I probably didn't handle that well, right? I should dealt with that in a different way. But it's one of those things you just don't realise when you're young and passionate, I guess.
Yes,
and you go,
that's
I just
right.
want to just throw this technology in there, so it's not the right.
Look, you know what? I reflect on this too, right? The younger version of myself was just like a steamroller, right? And get out of the way. This is what's happening.
Yeah.
I think
younger version.
You heard me, right? And I think if we're in a position now to balance the karma out, so to speak, and help people, then that's what we should do.
It's all about giving back.
Naran. To pay for the sins of our former. I'm speaking for myself, younger self.
I think that's fair. I mean, I think it's how you mentor the next generation coming up.
Yeah.
The younger Narans, right?
That's
right.
right.
And say them in the workforce. So, this is how you should approach this, right? That's really what we do now. Like, it's kind of that mentoring the younger generation coming through, and helping them realize that just being a steamroller and throwing technology at something and just pushing it through isn't going to end in a good result.
That's right.
Great answer. I love it.
All right.
You're next, Naran.
Okay, so I guess, look, leading on, so what would be your gut check for spotting a good partner? And just to be clear, we mean technology partner here. What would be your gut check for spotting a good partner or walking away from a bad one?
Yeah, I was going to talk about my wife then.
Well, listen,
that's okay.
We just had to be clear. We're going to have to
That's
reword the question.
Yeah.
We might have to. That's 2 in a row now.
That's right.
That's fine. Look, from a partner, I think, kind of touched on it a little bit before, right? I think to be honest, it's a partner that's willing to work with you, and that means I have to give up some concessions. They have to get some concessions, because at the end of the day, a partnership's a two-way conversation, two-way. You get some vendor to come in, these are our terms, take it or leave it. You get sometimes you can't be the same as a company, right? That's the first part. And the other bit is you start going through. I start to find is also that what the sales team tells you and what you actually get.
Yeah.
Is also a really good check around, is that really a good partner? Because generally if it is, that is very much pretty much the same.
Yeah.
So generally when you say, when it's not a good partner, is when the sales team's come in and sold, I don't know, a Ferrari, you end up with a rusted out Corolla with 2 wheels, and you go, well,
Shout out to Toyota.
It's just one of those things, it doesn't quite match up to what you thought you were getting.
Yeah.
And that's when you kind of go, oh, that's not really. So it's really, to be honest, it's that integrity, right? It's openness, open conversation, it's integrity, it's having open dialogue and being able to give and take a bit, which is a bit like being married, really, anyway, isn't it?
Well, allegedly, yeah. It's supposed to be like that. Well, look, I think, integrity I think is probably the key word there. And I reckon just be a little bit vulnerable, right? The power of honesty. Why not be honest, right? Like if we spoke about this before, like if you're being asked to do something that's maybe slightly out of your wheelhouse, call it out, right?
Yep.
There'll be a way to achieve the outcome, but, let your customer know that, actually, I might be doing this for the first time. What's wrong with that?
Yeah, that's good. I mean, what I might always do when I have my meetings with vendors or partners, one of the first questions I always ask is, how am I people treating your people? Because it's a good way to go, because that's also part of it, right?
That's
not just,
right.
hey, you're here to help me. It's actually, well, are my people doing a good by you as well? Because it's a two-way thing.
That's it.
Yeah, integrity and honesty. Who would have thought?
That's right.
It's important.
Yeah,
absolutely. I think that's fundamental to any business relationship.
Mm-hmm.
Naran and I were talking about this in the last episode, but in the context of being an MSP and choosing a technology partner to help you build a solution to solve a problem for your customer. And there's a few different lenses on that, but it does come back to that fundamental trust between the people.
Yep.
Yeah.
100%.
Fantastic answer. All right. Thanks, Simon. Look, thanks for joining us. It's been a fantastic conversation. I've learned actually a lot about superannuation and where it's headed. And there's probably some people listening out there who have learned a little bit more about how to sell stuff to Simon. So they'll be grateful for that.
Because that's what he wants.
That's what he wants.
Yeah.
We'll put Simon's number on the...
Yep, thank you.
Is it going to be... Okay, no problem. And look, fantastic conversation. Obviously an experienced leader in the sector. We love talking to subject matter experts, really insightful. And it is a high stakes, important sector, important job, technology driven, and securing the future of Australians. So I think underrepresented. So glad to have you with us today. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Simon.
Thank you both.
Amazing.
Pleasure.
Okay, well, look, thank you very much, everybody, for joining us for our second episode of Things Reasons. We were, of course, joined by Simon. Thank you very much, Simon. We would love everybody to subscribe if you haven't already. We will, of course, be back with more cut-through conversations, filtering out the noise. That's what's all about, driving the decisions for Australian IT leaders like our friend Simon. You will find this everywhere you get your podcasts, on Spotify, on YouTube. We'll blast LinkedIn. We do want questions. In fact, if we get questions for Simon, we'll make sure to ask him and get an answer back to you. We love questions. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for joining us, everybody. See you next time. This was Things Reasons with Naran, Jono, and today, Simon.